Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. This video is part of the YouTube series that I'm making called Zero to Hero Business Central. In this series, I already uploaded few videos on my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to learn about date functions in Business Central. In Business Central, there are many date functions that are involved, but mostly we are going to use date to date, month, year, date to date, week, year, and calc dates. So basically, you can use some date functions to get specific information out of dates or change the date to a specific format. For example, let us say we have today and I wanted to get the day in the today's date, or I wanted to get the week in today's week, or any other date. We can use date to date, month, year, or date to date, week, year. Or if I wanted to calculate some dates, for example, let us say I wanted to get a date after 1 week. So I can add 1 week to today's date and I can get the date after 1 week. So let us actually see them. Let us see these date functions in action. So I have employee setup page in here already, and I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code. In Visual Studio Code, I have one procedure called date functions. If you see this date function, it is getting called from the action button date functions on the employee setup page. If you see, I have the employee setup page. Let me actually log in first, and here you can see I have employee setup page and I have an action button called date functions. In date functions, basically I am calling this particular procedure from the employee operations code unit, and in here, if you can see, I have the code to basically show what is today. So let me actually publish this and let us see what today's date is actually, and let us actually see the other functions like date to date, month, year, date to date, week, year, and calculate dates based on the date that we have, which is today. So let me go to my Business Central, let me refresh this once, and let me click on date functions. Now here you can see I have today as 020226. So basically today is second and second month, and the year is 2026. So let me actually go to my Visual Studio Code and let me actually uncomment this particular code. Now here basically what I'm doing is I am actually trying to retrieve date part from today. Basically today is 02022026. So if I wanted to retrieve the date part, basically I have to give one as a second parameter to date, month, year. If you can see, gets the day, month, or year of date data type. So basically we need to provide the value which is an integer. So first, if you pass 1, it is going to be date. If you pass 2, it is going to be month. If you pass 3, it is going to be an year. So here I'm basically trying to retrieve date and month and year. So here you can see I had done the same thing for over here, but here I had passed the value as 2, here I had passed the value as 3, because in here I am trying to retrieve the year part, in here I'm trying to retrieve the month part, in here I'm actually trying to retrieve the date part in today. So let me actually publish this and let us see how that actually looks in the UI. So now it is published. So let me go to my Business Central, let me refresh this once. So reload, and now let me click on date functions. Now here you can see first message we have, which is this one. It shows today is 020226, and if you go in here, day part of today's date is second, and month part of today's date is second. Again, year part of today's date is 2026. So that is how we can actually use the date to day, month, year function on dates. So let me actually comment this particular code out, and now let us actually see the second functions that we have. And the second function is basically this one, date to date, week, year. So basically it is going to retrieve which day of the week it is. Like for example, we have 7 days in a week, and first is, if it gives a value of first, that means it is Monday. If it gives second, it means Tuesday, all the way up to Sunday 7, which is going to be Sunday. So in here, it is going to return us, if we are trying to retrieve what day of the week it is going to return us these values. Currently, if you see, today is Monday, and if I actually use this particular function on today's date, it should actually give me 1 because today is Monday. And let us actually see that in action. So let me go to Visual Studio Code, and here you can see I'm using date to day, week, year. So if you see, this particular part should actually give us 1, and this one should give us what week it is, and this should give us what year it is. So let me actually publish this, and let us actually see that in action. So now it is published. Let me go to my Business Central. Let me refresh this once. And now let me actually click on date functions. Now here you can see again we have this particular message which is today. So today is 02/02/26, and in here you can see date part of today's date is one base because this particular function returns us values based on which day it is in the week. Like for example, if today is Monday, it is going to give us 1. If today is Tuesday, it is going to give us 2. If today is Sunday, it is going to give us 7. So based on like how we have days, 7 days in a week, based on that it is actually going to give us this particular value. The week, we can see the week is sixth week, and the year is 2026. We are going to come back to this one later to see how it actually changes the values depending on which day of the week it is after we see calc date function. So let me actually comment this particular code out, and let me actually uncomment this particular code. In here you can see if you wanted to get some other date, or you wanted to do some calculation, or you wanted to do some addition, subtraction, or you wanted to add weeks to today or some other date, you can basically use CalcDate. Calculates a new date that is based on date expression and reference date. So basically the date expression is the first parameter. Here you can see I have given 1D. That means it is going to actually add 1 day to today. So today is 02/02/2026, and if I add 1 day to 02/02/2026, it should give me new date. That new date will be tomorrow's date because I am adding 1 day to today. So let me actually publish this, and let us see how that actually looks in the UI. So let me go to Business Central again. Let me actually do the refresh once. And now let me click on date functions. So first, it is again going to print us this one, which is basically today's day is 02/02/26. And in here you can see date after adding 1 day is 02/03/2026. Basically, this is the date part, and we have added 1 day to our today. So it turns out this particular day, which is tomorrow. Now let me actually go to my date to this particular syntax. In here you can see I have given today, but let me actually replace that with this particular syntax. I'm going to replace today. So basically here what we are doing is this particular expression or statement is going to retrieve the value of tomorrow, which is 03. That means if I wanted to see which day in the week we are in, it should return us 2 because tomorrow is Tuesday. So let me go to here, and let me actually publish this, and let us see how that actually looks in the UI. So let me go to Business Central again. Let me refresh this, and let me click on date function. So first it is going to give us the today is, and in here you can see the date part of today's date is 2. So basically what we did was we added 1 day to today, which turns out to be tomorrow, that is third, and third is actually Tuesday, so it is going to give us this particular value. We have already seen calculates. If you wanted to calculate dates based on any date, you can use calculate function. So that's all that we have in date functions. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'll be uploading more videos in this particular series called Zero to Hero Business Central. If you don't want to miss them, you should definitely consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.